Today we're also going to record things beforehand. Let's see if we record. Let's see how we do things here. To record the live today. Here we are here on Instagram. They are also opening Instagram. We're going to record the live stream and start today, almost unprepared, but we're going to start today's stream. We're in Johnville and it's July 30th, 2025. Today's stream has a very special name, which you'll all like. Today's stream is called Alma Livre. And we're going to approach this free soul in a way you might never have heard before. Free soul. When can you have a free soul? That's today's idea. We're going to talk about 3 zones where we can be represented, where we can be. And we'll explain these 3 zones nicely. When the soul is free and when the soul is locked up, when the soul is not free. And we'll look at that now, okay? So we'll start like this. To understand, first you have to have an idea of what the soul is. What is consciousness? What is mind? What are spirits? Once you know how to define soul, consciousness, mind, and spirits, you have a jargon we'll work with today. We'll work on the idea of mind, consciousness, soul, and spirits. That's the general idea. That's all. Every time you talk about soul, when you read about the soul, talking or reading about the soul is an interesting thing. And every time you talk about it, the soul has to do with emotions. The soul has to do with feelings. Sometimes someone will sing or give a performance and you say, no, it was soulless. Why was it soulless without feelings? The soul has a connection with our emotions. Our emotions have connections with our guts, with our interoception. So the soul is something that connects human interoception. Okay, that's the soul. Spirit is an idea. Sometimes someone will talk about something or do a math calculation. Two times two is 4, and 2 times 2 is 8. Okay, this information has no soul. It's the spirit. Spirit is something you inform, but it has no relevance, no feeling. You don't tense your body to approach that. You don't synchronize. And the other thing that is extremely important to us, and we have to always know this, that words are technology. Word is not a thing. Of being, it's a matter of use. We use words. You use words to achieve your goals. You even use words to express yourself. But the best way to express yourself is with the body. This is an expression of the soul, body sense, the expression of the soul, and not with words. Okay, but expression as words is beautiful. Poems are beautiful. It's very cool, written and spoken too. So look, but words are a technology. When I talk about soul and spirit, I'm using words, and every time I talk about it, I'm reducing things. Soul. The soul is you as a whole, with feelings, a body, and your own movement, and with restrictions on movement and feelings. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If we define what the soul is, it makes your life easier. The soul is the body. It's the entire body encompassing the brain, involving bodily functions. Spirit idea. An idea is a spirit. An idea about something is a spirit. An idea is that you don't need to be emotional to verbalize it. It's just an idea. So it's a spirit. Mind, the mind, the mind. It's interoception and proprioception. Interoception is visceral, all your views. It's the homeostasis of the human body. The homeostasis of the human body sends signals, and these interoceptive signals come to you. These interoceptive signals, which have to do with the homeostasis of the human body, along with proprioceptive signals, body movement, and muscle tension, these to process signals from the mind. The mind is the processing of these two signals. Obviously, it involves more signals, but we have to reduce it to simplify things. So what is the mind? The mind is the processing of interoception, the deep sense, and proprioception. Your muscular tension and your freedom of movement in space. Then I expanded proprioception a little further and coined a term called APUS. APUS is extended proprioception. It's a perception of a whole outside of you, and you locate yourself within that whole. You find yourself within that whole. You perceive the world around you, and you locate yourself. I'm Jackson within this universe. I'm the waiter. I'm the owner of this apartment, this business. I'm the customer. So you perceive and locate yourself in this APOS, which is an extended perception itself. Coming back. The mind is the processing of interoception, the body's internal homeostasis, along with proprioception, movements, and bodily tension. For example, if you go inside a church, your bodily movements and tension are already conditioned for behavior within the church, and visceral tensions are also affected. You impose extra tension on the viscera and restrictions on bodily movement, restrictions on expression. You in church don't move. Some different movements. No, you restrict movement within that apos, within that idea, within that religious volume. Why do you restrict movement? To benefit from that volume, from that church, from that sacred place. Apos comes from the Andean people, from the Andean communities, which are sacred places, sacred mountains. What makes you respect that sacred place? Then comes apos, and then comes this extended proprioception I'm talking about. Extended proprioception is how you reference yourself in apos. The mind is the processing of interoception and proprioception, body movement, and bodily tensions. This is the processing of the mind. So when your mind processes, it is processing bodily homeostasis and your bodily tensions and constraints. Mind. What is consciousness? When you perceive an environment, if you reference yourself within the environment, you perceive, even when dreaming, consciousness. Consciousness is your place of speech. Consciousness is where you perceive yourself to be in an external volume that could be a dream, okay? So we are the mind and consciousness. Let us now return to soul and spirit. Soul is simply something that you feel deep feelings about. It's of the soul, it's body and soul that people talk about, right? So feeling deeply is of the soul. So it has a lot to do with interoception and proprioception, but feeling deeply. Spirits are simply an idea. Spirit, you have a soul in every moment of your life. You have a tensional self. You have a soul for that moment. You have a great place for that moment. The great place is the soul. The great place is the traditional self. And this traditional self in this great place, I have access to several words, several things, various contents, various spirits. Spirits are semantic memories. The soul, the optimal place is episodic memory. It's the feeling together, but it's an unremembered episodic memory. It's an episodic memory lived now. You're experiencing the soul. You're experiencing or forming episodic memory now. Did you notice? So we've already explained it. Mind, consciousness, soul, and spirit already. Did you want to talk about a free soul? That's what we're going to talk about today. But we'll have to talk about zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. With these three different lines of reasoning, you'll see how you can free your soul. Who doesn't want a free soul? A free soul is an amazing thing. You're free to feel and express yourself. You have freedom of expression. That's impressive. For example, a very small child, maybe 2 or 3 years old, gets naked, opens their legs, closes their legs, boy or girl, it doesn't matter. They have different poses and different expressions. When this little girl, let's take a girl for example, which is easier because women always face a greater onslaught of restrictions. These girls, when they're 6 or 7 years old, don't sit like this, don't open their legs, don't do this, don't do that. So you have restrictions on expression. Women have less freedom of expression. How interesting. Why? Because we have a structured problem. We have a structural problem in the education process, and today we'll understand what structural problems and functional problems are. Two important terms for understanding the free soul. And we're going to enter zones 1, 2, and 3, okay? So freedom of expression is whatever you want to do, you do it. Hold on. But it depends on where you're at. Religious, theater, school, the pool. You dive into the pool and want to breathe underwater, only with a tank, only with a mask. You can want to, and you'll get hurt if you breathe. So you restrict your freedom of expression and life based on the volume where you are. You dive underwater, you can't breathe, you'll die, it'll be bad, understand? So you restrict it. But if you could, freedom of expression, you breathe or exhale. Or does understand. So now we're going to talk about this freedom of expression that you condition in your environments. But girl, don't do that. Boys don't cry. When you have this restriction that boys don't do this or girls don't do that, in that environment, it's fine. But if that girl, that boy is at home, if at home you don't have freedom of expression, your soul is trapped. Do you understand what I'm saying? Free spirit. Free spirit is freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is what the rules in that environment have these characteristics. Within these characteristics, you can do whatever you want within the rules of the environment. You are free to express yourself within the rules of the environment. Yes, but some people take these rules from this environment and apply them to another environment. Calm down. If you take a rule from one environment and apply it to another environment, you become more restricted because the other environment has different rules. And you take this one and apply it to another environment. Soon you're hunched over, you're feeling sluggish, evacuated, you've lost your freedom of expression because you're taking the rules from one environment to another. The rules at church aren't the rules at the club. They're not the rules at the theater. They're not the rules at school. They're not the rules in your bedroom. And they're not the rules in the shower. And they're not the rules in the pool. Every environment has its own rules. And these rules, usually the best of them, are rules for your well-being, rules that will help you and your greater freedom of expression. Okay, let's move on to the zones. 1, 2, and 3, zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Zone 1, you grew up, you were 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, 70, 80, 90 years old. Okay, you grew up. You've grown, but every time you're going to do something, for me to stand up, for me to speak, I tense my body, I create tension, including visceral and postural tension. I tense my body and I'm going to speak. So I put visceral tensions and bodily tensions, and tensions even in my voice. Here in my face, I have tensions. I express myself with my tensions. When I put tension into something, I'm no longer feeling the body in its natural state, which is without tension. Postural and visceral. Okay, but it's me. I created the tension. I wanted to climb that tree. I wanted to go swimming. I wanted to climb that hill. I wanted to run. So I created the tension, ran, came back, and released the tension. And the body returns to its original tensions. With the original tensions, the body begins to correct itself. With the original tensions, you feel your metabolism. You feel it, and healing begins to occur in your body. When does healing begin to occur? When you feel the visceral pain, when you feel the postural pain. Okay, but if I set out to climb a tree, I'm tense, postural pain won't hurt me. When will the healing happen? When I relax? I take that hot bath, lie down, relax, and feel the visceral pains and postural pain. That's zone one. I tense up to do it. Doing it consumes all the tension, and you're free to feel and do it again. That's zone one. In zone one, basically, we have M2R activated. Emitter is something inside the cell, and with emitter activated, the cell is ready to reproduce. It duplicates, it keeps duplicating because it has emitter activated. At that moment, when I'm doing things, when I'm walking, running, my knee is wearing out and killing cells. Cells are being manufactured now in zone 2. Zone 2 is a zone 1, sorry. Zone 1 is a zone where you have tissue reconstruction. So it's a structural zone. You're structured to rebuild tissue because the hematopoietic system is activated. Cell duplication. If the knee is wearing out, it's adding more cells. Okay. But suddenly, even in zone 1, you relax your entire body and engage in a process of enjoyment and metacognition. With your body relaxed, you'll feel your visceral and postural pains at this moment. Your breathing slows down. Your oximetry will be between 92 and 96. Breathing slowly, calmly, tension relaxed. In the fruition process, you move into zone 2. Zone 2, you deactivate mTOR. If you deactivate zone 2, there are long walks, processions, events with lots of people walking and walking for a whole day, 4 or 5 hours of walking. You enter zone 2. Zone 2 is a long, very long, continuous exercise. And in zone 2, a very important process will occur for you. It's a process of functional rebalancing. Your body will function better. I'll equalize bodily functions. I'll check bodily functions, but not structural ones. I won't be creating new cells. I'm just checking bodily functions. Understand? Zone 2. So I'm in zone 1 and I've already gone to zone 2 through a function with a method. Or sleep dreaming. You go to zone 2 except in REM. You're there, you're breathing less, you're calibrating, and zone 2, REM, we're in zone 2. Remember that REM sleep has active and phasic phases. In active sleep, you even simulate body postures more. The body tension and phasic is much more about visceral emotions. Both, we're precisely calibrating the mind in REM. Okay, so let's go. Zone 1, your natural life. You tense to do something, finish doing it, the tension ends. You tense to do something, finish doing it, the tension ends, and you feel your body and your body recovers. Zone 2, oops, I'm going to the state where I deactivate the hemisphere. I'm not going to duplicate cells anymore. I'm just going to correct them. You're going to have autophagocytosis. It's going to correct the cells. This also happens during a coma. It depends on what the person is going to do and their state. If you put people in a coma to calibrate their bodily functions, I leave them in zone 2. Zone 2, they're going to make the functions work well in zone 2. The hemisphere is deactivated in zone 2. But sometimes, even in a coma, blood pressure starts to drop. And then the doctor, the medical team goes in and injects norepinephrine to give that fight or flight response. And then the body wakes up. For blood pressure to rise, and then it leaves zone 2. Now we're moving toward a better structure, but in this fight or flight, the body will prioritize organs like the brain, heart, and lungs. and there won't be good vascularization in the peripheries, and it will leave zone 2. It used to be a more structural thing. Emitter is activated, it will reproduce cells. If I'm running, the knee will wear down the cell and produce new cells because we've left zone 2, because now the emitter is activated. And now, before we talk about freedom of soul, let's move on to zone 3. Zone 3 is an extremely particular thing. In your life, you wanted to climb the tree, and you did. You tensed your posture viscerally, and you climbed the tree. You had the idea of studying this or doing that, and you're doing it. You have a business, you're building your business, you tense your body and your guts and do your business, but 4, 6, 5 years ago, suddenly they put you in an ideology, words about faith and beliefs, and these words about faith and beliefs imposed a visceral tension on you above of the original visceral feeling, a bodily tension above your original bodily tension. And you use this attention not only to go to church or to this ideology or to this culture, but to live. You use visceral and bodily attention to live. And where are you? Sona 3, you have the gun stuck. You're no longer free to live because the most important thing is this activated consciousness. Oh, with activated consciousness, the most important thing in life is my activated consciousness. My belief in Buddha, my belief in I don't know what tribal, my consciousness in the Orisha, my activated consciousness. My activated consciousness tenses my viscera, tenses my bodily movements, traps the soul, it traps the soul. Your soul is no longer free. Why is the soul no longer free? Because you are a follower of such and such a group, because you no longer think or feel for yourself. The group's tensions created visceral tension. The group's tensions created bodily tension. There's an enemy. The planet is going to end. Look at the enemy. Look at the conspiracy. Look at the vaccine. There's a G5 chip. It's even flat. Look how absurd. And these tensions, these lies, create a visceral and bodily tension in you above of your original visceral and bodily tensions. The soul is trapped. Your soul is no longer free. I'm talking to you. Detach or deny your faith beliefs? No, I'm saying that at some point, belief, faith, and ideologies are used for a purpose. At some point, you have to let go of these visceral and bodily tensions and relax. And by relaxing, you will allow your body to heal. You won't be fictionalized by a specific idea, and these ideas, which are ideas, are spirits imposing feelings within your body. If you go online on social media, that's it. First, I'll capture, activate your consciousness, grab your attention, and impose visceral and bodily tensions on you. Activated consciousness, visceral and bodily tensions beyond your limits. You no longer feel yourself. You feel the idea. You feel a spirit. You've embodied a spirit. You're already a locked or tormented soul. You're no longer a free soul. Because you let ideas live within you, not your body, your life, your essence. And the most important thing is to free yourself. How do you free yourself? Being free to feel your inner sensations and have bodily movements. I'm in Joinville and there's a dance festival here. Body expressions, the expression of pain. You express yourself, you feel your pain, and you cry. For your pain, not the pain of an idea stuck in your body. I have to cry my pain. If I cry my pain, I heal. If I cry about collective pain, I won't heal. I'm being used by the collective, so you have to know how to differentiate between collective pain, the pain of my group, my church, my soccer team, my sports team, This is public pain, it's collective pain, the pain of the school, of this complex system where I am and where I belong. Okay, it's valid, I have to feel that belonging. But it's public pain, not personal. Your healing will come when you feel your personal, visceral, non ideological pain of your body, of your muscular tensions. You can do this with enjoyment and metacognition. You can do a movement, the same movement, a long walk, or the same movement, or stop and stay in a state of meditation, however you see fit. Or these repetitive movements too. Some do prayer, others do jumping jacks. There's no problem. Do it however you want with whatever belief you have. But at some point you will feel your pure pain without words, without ideas, without beliefs, without faith. Pure pain. Pure pain will heal you. Pure pain will improve your metabolism. And you will enter zone 1 or 2. And in zone 2, you'll inactivate the hemitor. Another thing, prolonged fasting also inactivates the hemitor, and then you start healing the functions. Because the hemisphere isn't letting the cell reproduce, it autophagocytoses, but the structure isn't healing. If I cut the skin, the inactivated hemisphere won't let me reattach it, because your cut has to involve a structural element, a structural reform. For example, we have structural prejudice. What is structural prejudice? Prejudice means that institutions don't defend those who have been victims of prejudice. And functional problems. There are laws and norms, but they're not being enforced. Did you notice? This is functional in the body, functional. The mTOR is inactivated. The cells are autophagocytosing and checking bodily functions, our bodily institutions, our way of being and living. And if it's a structural issue, calm down. mTOR is activated. Cells are reproducing throughout the body, in every part of the body. Your soul is free when visceral and bodily tensions were imposed by you, not by words, by the body, by the deep sense. In your body, in your life, in your essence, and your soul is free to correct itself, to improve, and to show the world the best of the world. And the best of the world is you with your soul free DNA free. Guys, that's what I wanted to leave with you this week. See you next Wednesday.